Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Dario Orozco and I am the owner of vitacalcio.com, also Everythingsgoingup Creative Agency. So my goal really is for both of those to combine and mesh into one eventually. But really what Everythingsgoingup Creative Agency is really a platform for myself to showcase my skills that I've learned throughout the years in regards to digital marketing, any e-commerce experience, and any insight into the fashion apparel. And with that said, I started a while ago with a clothing company called The Quiet Life, and essentially I started as a warehouse manager there and really moved on to building out their Shopify platform. So what that means is that the company itself is a fashion and apparel company, and they would sell t-shirts, hats, shorts, anything like that, and really have a wide customer base based on their distribution network. So pretty much like that propelled me into the e-commerce world. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do after school, so it was kind of a nice surprise for me to get into that field and really develop my skill set towards e-commerce. So I started building out a Shopify store. I quickly realized that I didn't have any coding skills, any Photoshop skills. So that quickly turned to my attention that I had to learn a certain new set of digital marketing skills to kind of propel my career. So in the process, I learned Liquid, I learned HTML, I learned CSS, I learned Photoshop, I learned Illustrator, I learned just how to manipulate files on a larger scale, export CSV files, use your VLOOKUPs, use pivot tables, and really kind of gather this skill set that typically isn't found just in a course in college, but it's something that I quickly became passionate about, and really just learning the ins and outs of e-commerce is what I enjoy day to day. So fast forward a couple years, and literally I wanted to back my soft set of skills with an actual MBA, just to kind of prove to the professionals out there that although my skill set wasn't backed by a degree or certification, so to speak, I still had that MBA behind me. So I keep working on my skills very often and almost daily and weekly. So my goal here is really to kind of give you a little bit of a background about myself and the goals that I have for the future. So one of those goals for me was to create a podcast where I can introduce people that usually wouldn't get typical airplay or things like that. I guess they were just friends and family that I was really interested in, and that quickly turned into a 4-series set. And then COVID kind of hit, and it became very difficult for me to get people inside and interview and so on and so forth. The logistics just kind of got a little bit out of hand for me, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do, is to have an online or telephone chat kind of deal. So what I did was I want to reinvigorate my podcast with just myself and just answer any questions about digital marketing or experiences that you might want for me to talk about, or just things like that. So with that said, I'll give you a little bit more of a quick brief intro to me, and then I'll talk about my podcast. I'll talk about the YouTube channel that I'm starting, and also the motivation that drives me to really kind of keep moving everything forward. So with that said, the podcast is called Everythingsgoingup Creative Agency, and really what that podcast does is to help inspire you, myself, to kind of keep learning as time progresses. And that's really what I really am passionate about. Just anything that I can learn, anything new idea, any kind of just tech breakthrough or anything e-commerce related, I get super excited about, and I want to touch more of that on each and every one of my new podcasts. With that said, I'm going to just touch it quickly on how I'm hosting it, what my plans are, and devices to spread my message to multi-platform access, and then talk about some of the gear, some of the software, and some of the things that I've encountered as technical difficulties, as far as producing the podcast and also releasing the podcast. So one of the first things that people always ask me is like, so how do you get your podcast online? And that's, I think, is very simple. I think it's often, I would say, people get scared about what it takes to create a podcast, and that's really not the case. Really, what you have to do is just put yourself out there, like myself right now, and really start exploring the avenues on what it takes to open your podcast. So one of the very first things that I suggest doing once you started your venture is go on to Libsyn. And Libsyn is a hosting platform that is very popular, and also very well respected. So Libsyn is considered one of the number one podcast hosting websites, and one of the most popular podcasts that you've probably heard of is Joe Rogan's podcast, The Experience, who just signed like $100 million deal with Spotify. So he's doing a lot of big things, and he's also a big inspiration to myself. So if you think that it's not possible, it definitely is. And the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to log in and sign up. So what you'll do is you sign up, you'll pick a credit card, you'll pick your podcast name, and you can start off as little as $5 a month, and that's really only equates to $60 for a year. And what that does, it gives you a hosting platform for your podcast, and then from there, what you can do is submit your request on Spotify and also on Apple. That way you'll have both of those podcasts. You have those multiple requests, and more than likely you'll get submitted to Spotify first, and then you'll be on Apple, iTunes Music after that. I mean Spotify Apple Podcasts after Spotify. So you'll have those two submitted, and then you'll pretty much be able to create your own show. All you need is one artwork, and that's a 1080 by 1080p resolution, maybe 72 dpi, which is essentially just a square in your artwork, and also an original name. So for example, my podcast is called Everythingsgoingup Creative Agency, and I've only have 4 shows on there. So that's really the purpose of this podcast right now, and also to announce that I'll be on YouTube more. So I'll start releasing tutorials. I'll start releasing frequently asked questions by friends and family that are often asking, hey, I want to start a clothing line. What can I do? Hey, I want to promote my business. How can I start? What's SEO? What do you do for a living? Amazon Marketplace, what does that mean? So as you may or may not know, I'm an Amazon expert, and what that means is that I deal with multiple brands on a daily basis, and that's client facing. So I have a lot of direct to consumer experience. I have B2B experience, and also vendor central and seller central experience. So I'm very well versed in Amazon as far as a specific niche in my marketing experience, in my digital marketing experience. But I also encompass an entrepreneurial spirit that really touches a lot of realms. For example, my clothing company is called Vita Calcio, which is also translates to the football life in English. And what Vita Calcio is really a society and culture website that encompasses everything and all things soccer. So vitacalcio.com is where my apparel lives, and really it gave me a platform to begin using Shopify, began creating my own store, using marketing techniques, using some Facebook ads, using Google ads, using specific themes that are more versed towards e-commerce, and really it's opened up a lot of doors, and it's a platform that's come a long way from really just kind of being a native sort of third-party platform where you weren't really getting like the most I don't know. The way I see Shopify is just that it's evolved time after time, and as of now I just got an email saying that Walmart is working with Shopify. Also, I've worked in Walmart before, and I've worked with big companies that have a ton of ASINs from Amazon, and transpose those ASINs to Walmart. So really what I'm going to be touching on is a lot of digital marketing aspects, a lot of broad questions, but on top of that, I'm also going to be touching on some personal breakthroughs that you have to have in order to overcome certain mindsets that might be stopping yourself and also myself from achieving certain goals. So that's why Everything's Going Up is such a perfect and narrative for not only the podcast but for everyone in general to have and carry at all times, because Everything's Going Up is motivational, it's energy, it's propelling you forward and upwards and never going backwards. And that's really one of the things that I really want to exemplify and also really translate to yourself as a listener. So if by chance you've heard any of the previous podcasts, which I didn't really like, and I'll state it later in another podcast because this is just like the intro one, you can tell that it's going to grow and it's going to get better, and it's only going to do better. So with that said, I'll leave you guys off with one of my favorite quotes, actually. Okay, found it. So this quote's by Winston Churchill, and he reads, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." So I'll just leave you off with that, and stay tuned. Make sure to go to my YouTube. It's Everything's Going Up Creative Agency. Also, subscribe to the podcast. And if you have any questions whatsoever, this is going to be an open platform to ask, and I'll have one of the very best answers coming back to relay your question. So stay tuned, subscribe, and make sure to sign up to anything that pops up. And if you're curious about the clothing line that I've started, it's vitacalcio.com. Also, if you want to visit the agency, it's everythingsgoingup.com. And thanks so much for watching and listening.